Hello programmers, good day and welcome to our programming class. So I want to thank you guys for making it this far and making this decision. You know, a man once said action is the fundamental key to success. So I thank you guys for making this decision. And so we're going to be beginning by introducing what we mean by programming to us. What do we mean by programming language? Now, a programming language is a set of commands and instructions and other syntax used to create a software program. Now, I want to put it in a better way by saying that a programming language is a set of instructions that are compiled together to perform a specific task by the central processing unit, which is the CPU. So this programming language helps you to direct the computer on what to do. We have these three levels. We have the high level, the low level, and the machine language. Now let's explain it. To make it very simple, we say that high level languages are written in English words. Low level languages are written in symbols, while the machine languages are written in binary numbers, that is 0 and 1. So when you see something like 110011, it has something that it stands for in the machine language. Know that some of us might have come across it maybe in the secondary school where it was taught in computer. So the computer processor directly understands the machine language. So the language that the computer understands is this machine language, which is the last. For the that is for the computer to process the instruction. So how can we then help the computer to understand, to break down this? Because we cannot be writing, for example, now you want to write that the computer should open a tab. You can imagine how many zeros and one that we'll be able to write before we can be able to give the computer that instruction. So when we write our programming language, when we write with our programming language, so the computer has the only language that the computer understands is this machine language. Now to help the computer to get it, to help the computer to get these machine languages, we use this translator. So for example, whatever that we write in the low level language have to be translated to the machine language for the computer to understand. So the translator for the low level language is called the assembler. So you can, because another name for the low level language is also known as the assembly language. So we can better understand that, okay, that is why it's called the assembler. For the high level language, the translator is grouped into two. So that is the compiler and the interpreter. Now, what does the compiler do? The compiler translates all the high level language code, as the name suggests, all at once. It compiles them, while the interpreter translates the code line by line. Just like when you want to interpret something, you have to interpret it line by line by what the person sees. So the compiler translates it all at once, while the interpreter translates the code line by line. So the compiler translates all the high level program, then give the translated version to the computer processor to execute. So whereas the interpreter will translate a line of code, give it to the processor for execution, then it will repeat the same thing as is translating it is giving it to the giving the version to the computer processor, just as it's translating it. So I want us to understand why we write code. That is why we are explaining all this. Why we write programs, why we write codes. So that when you know the concept of things, by my friend, my very good brother and friend do tell me that, said knowing the concept of things makes you a master in it. So that is why we have been explaining all this. Now, what is Java? Coming to Java. Java is a high level language. It is written in English words. Other high level languages are Pythons, PHP, different others that are out there. So the Java that which we are focusing is a high level language. It is written in English words. it does not use interpreter for translation. It rather uses compiler. But languages like Python uses interpreter. Now let's explain how the compiler works. As usual, the compiler translates all the Java codes to a bytecode file with a .class extension. This bytecode file is similar to the machine language, but in contrast to what you might think, it is not read by the computer processor, but rather by what is called the JVM, which stands for the Java Virtual Machine. So this machine reads the bytecode and executes its instruction. So what do we mean by this? When you have a Java program written, then when you run the program, this JVM that was mentioned, which is the short form for the Java Virtual Machine, the JVM takes this program that you wrote, then it generates a .class extension for it. Don't forget, when you want to create a Java program, it ends with .java extension. So when this JVM takes this .java extension, it generates a .class extension for it. So this .class extension contains the bytecode which the machine can understand. So then the machine reads the bytecode and it executes the instruction. Now, errors in Java. There are two instances that errors can happen in our program. The first one is during that is the compilation by the compiler. During the compilation, this error that occurred then is called the compile errors. Sorry, the errors is called compiled error. They are due to errors in Java code, just like maybe you misspelled something, you omit necessary punctuation marks and all that. So these errors, and we bless that we're happy for how the technology have advanced. Software that is, the ID is like IntelliJ will help you to identify these errors. So when you miss it, the IntelliJ will show you a red mark to mark that you missed something, which that can cause a compilation error. So it will mark it there. The second is error when the program is executed. We refer to these errors as runtime errors. They occur when the JVM detects an operation that is impossible to execute. Consider we create a program that accepts two input from a user. Then maybe the user then went to impute letters instead of imputing integers 1, 2, 3. Then you want to impute letters or words. So this error is triggered. Another example is when you divide anything by 0. So this error is triggered. So now a quick question: which of the programming languages do you think will reasonably be the fastest to execute by the computer processor? Don't forget to drop your answer below. And I want us to make this research. We say that one of the things that signifies a programmer is the ability for you to make research. Now, let us do this. Java is a platform independent. That is, Java is platform independent. What does this mean and why? So we want us to make research. Drop the answer in the comment below. And also, I came across these questions and I think that it has to do with what we have been discussing. So I want us to answer this question and let us drop our answer below. Thank you guys for joining me in this introduction section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The tutorial where we begin our classes will begin next. So thank you guys for joining me. Until next time, God bless you. Please, any questions should be dropped down below. Thank you.